Earth, the blue planet, our home. The achievements of mankind can be seen from space. The cities light up the night sky. What if, in history, we could have seen our planet from space? Would we have seen the great achievements and constructs like the Great Wall of China? We will never know. But one thing is for sure. If anybody would have been in space, they would have seen one of the greatest and most visible structures that man ever made, the USS Alaska. Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. Today, we are looking at the Alaska, the Tier 9 American battlecruiser. Yes, it is a bloody battlecruiser, no matter how many times they're saying it isn't. This is all the fault of the Germans, because of the Deutschland class, like the Graf Spee. And everybody everybody crapped their pants a little bit and got scared. And figured, oh gosh, we're going to need to do something to deal with these post-treaty super heavy cruisers, and we're going to have to make bigger ones. Now, the treaties, obviously being the Washington-London Naval Treaty, were limiting the tonnage and the size and whatever you could put in terms of guns and armor on ships, which led to what we see currently as the heavy cruiser line. Like all these things were mostly limited by the respective treaties. This is what you get when you're not limited by a treaty, a battle cruiser. The Alaskas were very big and were designed as cruiser killers. So the idea was to deal with things like the Deutschland class, and they were concerned at the time that the Japanese were building similar things, so they had to have something that countered it. But they've been changing the design so many times, and it took so long to actually get to these things, that the war was all but over by the time they were finished. They were used as carrier escorts, in which role they were really, really good, and rather similar to the Iowas. So, what kind of guns, if this is not a battleship, what kind of guns do they put on it? Well, they needed to have guns big enough to deal with something that was larger than a regular heavy cruiser. They put the 3 or 5 millimeter main guns on it, which we've seen a long time ago in the tech tree, but in a much more modern turret and with a more modern loader system, which leads to actually a much improved reload and just a really much better gun. In terms of anti-aircraft defense, you'd think that there's something that is almost the size of an Iowa. You'd have a lot of that. Not actually. They pretty much have the same AA defense as the Baltimores. They have the secondaries and the dual-purpose secondaries and a couple of smaller 40 millimeters, 20 millimeters and such. So this is what happens when you're messing around with the design too long, I guess. Anyway, so how does that reflect in-game? The Alaska, Tier 9 super heavy cruiser on the American line, and we have a okayish amount of hit points. She is relatively sturdy, but she is not a battleship. They were not known to be extremely heavily armored. In fact, the Alaska had a relatively low armor to weight ratio. So, while the advertisement claims that she is protected by steel, it conveniently forgets to mention how thick that steel is. Which leads us to something like what we have here, which, isn't terrible, but it's not battleship rate armor by any means whatsoever. She is reasonably fast, but then again, so are the Iowas at the time. And her maneuverability isn't great. Then so would be the Iowas. The guns. So we've got 305 millimeter, which sounds like a bit of a low caliber. And in return, we do get a much faster reload. So instead of back in the lower tiers, when we would have a 21 or 22 second reload on these things, we would get a 13 second reload now. The range is interesting, and you might see that I haven't completely set her up, and I'm coming to that. The range is just under 13 kilometers, isn't great. I think there are 150 mils in the game that have a longer range than this. The high explosive damage is a bit meh, and honestly the high explosive penetration is a bit meh as well from what I've seen so far. I've managed to do semi-pens on Fletchers in this thing at medium range. So this is not a cruiser in the terms of dealing with destroyers by any means whatsoever. The armor piercing is pretty nice, and you can, if you're aiming for the deck armor, you can do a lot of damage. And obviously, if you're shooting at cruisers, you are getting very reliable full penetrations as well. The secondaries are nothing to write home about. It's your standard off-the-shelf 127mm dual-purpose secondaries. You get 6 each side. And they've got a under 6 kilometer range, so it's just really not anything special here. The AA, it's not terrible, but it's not like Des Moines level murderous AA. It can shoot down planes, but she is such a big target that I tend to get triple fires from dive bombers more often than I like it, and she cannot really defend herself against a concentrated AA attack by a carrier. So in comparison, if you're out in, say, Des Moines, and a carrier sends 4 waves of planes at you, he will do some damage, but he will not get these 4 waves of planes back. They will all go down. And then he will not do that again for the rest of the battle, because otherwise he'd be out of planes in no time. Not so much with this thing, especially if you're in a tier 10 battle. The surface detection of 12.3 kilometers. Now, you remember that I mentioned that the guns have a range of 12.9 kilometers stock. Yes, you literally have a margin of 600 meters between your maximum range and your spotting range. Let that sink in, because that means that you are basically constantly in your firing bloom, because all that does is you extend your detection range by 600 meters. This is the one single biggest problem this ship has. And I have had a lot of problems with this ship, but that is the single biggest problem you have with this ship. You cannot position, because you will be spotted. It is so bad that I had the worst game in my career in this ship. And that wasn't the first game I had in this. I've been messing around with the setup for quite a while to figure out how I would set her up. And the setup will end up to be a little bit unusual for a ship this class. You'd think usually you'd go with something like propulsion and steering, but we'll get to that. Anyway, yes, so just bear that in mind. So, what do we have to do? Usually, in setups, I try to reinforce the strength of a ship rather than compensate for their weaknesses. But this weakness is such a glaring, massive problem that, first of all, we need to extend our range. So that is absolutely essential. With the Advanced Gun Director Elite bonus, we get our range up to, where are we at now? Okay, it hasn't actually updated, so let's switch over here. We're getting up to 13.4 kilometers. Now that means we actually have a little bit over a kilometer margin now between our detection range and our actual firing range. That still means that you will be spotted before you can even position yourself and before you can even effectively return fire. Enemy destroyers will spot you from half across the map without you firing your guns. Enemy battleships will shred you to bits before you get even close to being able to return fire. So, we need to get that detection down. So the first thing I did was have a look at the camouflage. And unusually for historical camouflages, it doesn't reduce the detection, but it increases the range further. So this is, again, essential. I would not recommend playing the ship without the historical camo. The alternative, obviously, being that you accept the lower range and you go with the Seaborne Assault for surface detection. That's kind of the only viable alternative to do it the other way around. Now this brings us to a main battery range of 13.96 kilometers. Okay. Which still means we have a relatively wide gap. So we need to get that down, which means in the third slot, I am actually going to fit the concealment module. And you'll be like, what the hell are you doing here? What happened to steering gear mode 2? Yes, I would very much have liked to have steering gear mode 2 because I'm in a tier 9, 40,000 hit points, relatively strongly armored cruiser, but by no means battleship. Trust me. I've tried. You can't fight destroyers in this thing anyway, effectively, because 30-second reload with, yes, you do a reasonable amount of damage, but you're not doing enough to actually shred a destroyer on approach. And you're not a destroyer counter. You're a cruiser killer. You have a single purpose in life, and that is to lob shells from a distance at things that you can damage. So that's why we have the propulsion mod in slot 2. And I've tried to use the steering gear mod 1 to get a bit better traverse, but in the end, the propulsion mod's actually more useful because you will be doing ranged sniping in this thing. And that's also why we have the main battery mod 3 in the first slot for precision, because you need that, because you'll be shooting at maximum range, because if you're not, then you'll be focused down in absolutely no time. All right, that out of the way. Actually, one thing I was considering as well is the high-grade coal for this ship, and I do like the refined diesel for extra speed to get into position, and I definitely recommend having the preventive maintenance pack to get a couple more hit points in, because you don't have all that many. And obviously, I do like the better gun reload, but I am actually I would actually consider using the high-grade coal in this ship just to get the surface detection a bit more down. So what does it look like now? So with all this done, we have a range of just under 14 kilometers, and we have a detection range of 11 kilometers. This starts becoming something you can do. Now, for comparison, the Missouri has a 12.3 kilometer surface detection range, but the Missouri has a gun range of almost 16 kilometers. So yes, and she's a battleship, right? I have had games where I couldn't even get into position behind things like islands. I would literally have to stay behind the battleships, behind the battleship line. But the problem then is that the battleships are getting into a long-range duel I can't reach because I don't have the range. So this is the only setup that I have found to be somewhat workable on this ship for myself. Now, this might, of course, be some just, I'm not doing it right, but if you have different experiences, please do let me know. I have stuck a commander in here, but before we look at that, actually, let's have a look at ship skills. She gets the precise aiming system, which is good, and we need that because we're going to be long-range sniping. And with this setup, she is actually extremely precise at long range. And she does have a really, really reasonable damage output if you can get into a position where you can safely do it. She gets the Air Defense Alert 1, which is a bit unfortunate that she doesn't get an Air Defense Alert 2. I don't know if the Baltimore got that. Actually, let's quickly check. Yes, the Baltimore gets the Air Defense Alert 2, which gives you 100% AA damage. And the Alaska, at the same tier, with the same AA as the same AA guns as the Baltimore, gets the Air Defense Alert 1, which gets you 75% increase, which is a bit unfortunate, really. But in return, she gets 2 radar consumables, which is great to spot destroyers. Not that you can do anything about them, but it's great to know that they're there. So you do have a little bit of utility, but it's a radar 1, and it has a range of 7.2 kilometers, which means that you'll be spotted for 6 kilometers before you even get into a position of a destroyer coming anywhere near you. So, yes. Don't be fooled. This is not a Cleveland-style utility cruiser or a Seattle-style, even though she has a somewhat similar setup. No. Which brings us to the captain. What have I got? I've got the underwater protection. I have an extra air defense alert, which gets us actually up to... How many do we have now? Which gets us to 2, which is what we really need. The artillery maintenance is good. Definitely air defense expert is something you absolutely want to have. I've got Survivalist because I don't need an extra precise aiming consumable. I have the Generalist because that made sense. Marksman, definitely yes, that's the next skill you need. And from there on, it's just really up to you. Adrenaline Rush was something I figured I'd try just because I'm I get shot at so much. And then Demo Expert, and you probably definitely do not want the IFHE, but you want the APCS because your high explosive shells are not the greatest, really not. If you're doing 450 damage with a shot against the destroyer and you're having a 13-second reload at tier 9 or 10, then yeah. The armor piercing works against destroyers pretty well at range. The 300 mils will actually full pen at long range against destroyers. So you can do some early destroyer damage pretty nicely with the armor piercing. I don't know if the APCS would counter that, but anyway. This is not a destroyer killer. You're there to kill cruisers. So let's have a look. So this is as ideal a setup as it gets. We are top tier. We're playing against only 2 battleships on the enemy team. And there is a Rune, a Shapayev, an Edinburgh, with a lot of cruisers we can shoot at, and a single destroyer only. It's the Cossack, so she's not the greatest torpedo boat. And we're up against the carrier as well. So it doesn't get any better in the Alaska. We're playing Haven. Let's see what we can do here. Usually, if you're facing a battleship-heavy opposition, all you can do is hang back, because if you get aggressive, you will be focused down, and you will be focused down so rapidly with 40,000 hit points that you're not going to survive long. Let me put it that way. Even if you go bow in, this thing is so big, she gets just killed by battleships. So we're going to head over to point B, because we most definitely do not want to be alone, exposed somewhere where we get spotted. Now look at the circles, the dotted line and the solid line around the ship on the minimap. These were almost overlapping in a stock setup. So I would pretty much at this point, like round about nowish, I would usually be spotted. And I would often be the first ship to be spotted, which is really not a good thing when you're in a cruiser, even in a battle cruiser, in a really heavy one. So I'm unloading some blind shots at the Cossack just in case any of these hit, but they're all going wide. But that's fine. I have a 13-second reload, so I do have a reasonably fast reload. The carrier is not going anywhere near me, and look, I'm not yet spotted. Isn't that great? Anyway, there's the Rune. Okay. And precise aiming out, and let's get some shots off. Looks like the Cossack is disappearing, and this is something I can work with. But again, we get semi-pens against the Rune at this range with the armor piercing. Oh, well, Rune is a very sturdy German cruiser, so that's kind of expected. But we have a 13-second reload, so there's a lot of lead we can hurl down range and make the Rune's life very unhappy. And there's Shapayev as well. So the destroyer is hanging around there on the left. I'm not going to deal with the destroyer because I am really not the ship to do that, even though I am actually a cruiser. I'm just varying my speed a little bit. I'm just asking the carrier, hey, would you please kill that Cossack over there? Because I am not equipped to deal with that thing. Okay, Shapayev, light cruiser. What can we do at this range? 8 kilometers, light cruiser. 4 hits, no citadel, okay? Let's try that again. Broadsiding Shapayev. Come on, can we get another one off? Broadsiding Shapayev, 7 kilometers. Shots out. 4 shots, no citadels. Okay. So, yes, you can score citadels against cruisers, because this is literally what this thing is meant for. But it's not guaranteed, even against something as lightly armored as the Shapayev. But even if you just do full pens, you have a very high rate of fire, and you notice that I'm not stopping here. I'm just rushing through, because so far nobody has even bothered to shoot back at me, and we killed a Rune, which again is what we're supposed to do. Okay, Shapayev. What's the top range on the Shapayev? I don't know. Under 6 probably, so I should be safe over here. Again, no citadels. I get a couple overpens, but I can whittle them down pretty easily. Up there come the Shapi Torps. Yeah, that should be fine. Okay, almost broadside. And then we get under air attack. So there we go. Finally, we get a citadel. And these are battleship guns, so we get 250% citadel bonus. Now, I'm giving broadside here to the two Izumos over there, which is not something I want to do. But I want that Chapayev dead. So another salvo out. 8 good hits, and she still survives. No citadel, but we managed to kill one of her guns, and someone's going to kill that thing, right? There you go. Okay. Carrier. 9 kilometer range. Okay. And we shot 2 aircraft down. Okay. 3 aircraft, all in all. That is disappointing, given that we've just had them fly over. So, the defensive A is on cooldown, and there come the torpedo bombers. Can I do some... Can I actually dodge these torpedoes? Probably not. Because, again, all I can do is actually heal that and try to shoot one of them down, 2 of them. If this was a Des Moines, or probably even... There come another 2. Okay, so we've got 4 down. If this was a Des Moines, none of these would have gotten back. There we go. Citadel on the Edinburgh. Now, we haven't been shooting at battleships. You can Citadel battleships, but it's by no means guaranteed. But broadsiding Edinburgh, tier 8 light cruiser, extremely light cruiser, that should be doable. That's the Edinburgh's torps. And, okay, defensive AA up again. And yes, you shoot a couple of planes down, but not sufficiently to actually deter a carrier from going after you. So that's 3 planes and 4 planes, I think, on the flyover. So that is not... Okay, you're trying to smoke up? I've got radar. I don't know if I'm actually in radar range. I'm just dodging the Edinburgh's torpedoes because sure as hell that they come. But that thing's still alive. And that Takao, almost there. He threaded the needle. That thing's still alive. A couple more shots out. But there comes the carrier again. And the carrier is doing a monstrous job here. He's doing exactly the right thing. He's disengaging. He's basically carrier kiting us. And I only have 18,000 hit points left. And I haven't even been shot at by battleships. I've only been under air attack. And I've not even been alone the whole time, right? In any other American heavy cruiser, this would be not a great idea. But in... I'm top tier in this battle. Okay, it's a tier 9 carrier. Okay, we got lucky there. And we just got a couple of hits, but we're down to 6,000 hit points. Okay, we can heal a couple back, and I still haven't managed to kill the damn Edinburgh. Okay. Defensive A is off cooldown again. I could have probably slapped the Taiho by now, but I really want that Edinburgh down. And there come some more carrier planes. He's broadsiding. I've got all guns out. I've got him on lock. I really need to do a manual lock on here. And can we kill him? 5 hits, and the Edinburgh is still alive. No more citadels against the broadsiding Edinburgh, and it looked like he was dropping the destroyer, but it looks like he's dropping me. I have no chance to dodge these, and that's that. Yes. Yes, I've shot down 22 aircraft, but this is as ideal as it gets. I've done 80,000 damage, yes, but that's because I've been only fighting cruisers. Light cruisers at that. I've only managed 2 citadels, and I have not been shot at for the first half of the battle, which is extremely unusual. Normally, if the battleships gets a hold of you, you're dead before you can do 20,000 damage. Anyway, we've won this battle. That's given. But very well done, that Taiho, with kiting away and surviving this. And the Edinburgh is still alive. Against my best efforts, the damn thing survived. So, yes, we won this. Yes, did I get a big caliber out of this? I can't remember. I'm going to have to check. But this is as ideal as it gets. If you play yes, we did. If you play a Center Cup map with this ship, and you have to snipe from long range, and you get under concentrated battleship fire, then you're not gonna live for very long, and you're not gonna be very happy. So you can basically baseline, hide yourself behind another battleship, and just bow in, do the best you can, and you will do some damage. But I find it exceedingly difficult in this ship to carry a game, because there's really only one thing she's good at, or relatively good at, and that's killing cruisers. And when it comes to that, I'd rather be in a rune, to be honest. Because very sturdy and faster reload and very precise guns, and I can in a battle like this, I would have rather been in a rune. So, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this ship. It has been furiously frustrating to play in the beginning until I got to this point where I can say, okay, now I'm reasonably confident that I can have okay games in her with this setup, with all the range increase and detection reduction. But as for her role, battleships can kill cruisers, and I would much rather be in a Missouri than in this thing. When it comes to, if I was in the same battle, right, in the exact same battle, and I was in a Missouri, I would have rather been in that one. And I would have been able to blap these cruisers out of the water probably as quickly as with this one. And I had a lot more armor and health to work with. So, it is a very specialized ship, and I am definitely not a huge fan of her. But, now you know. And maybe you'd say, no, I have a cunning plan of what we can do with this thing. And you go in all Baldric and say, no, I'm going to get this one, and we'll go for it. So I'll totally be my guest. This is just really my opinion, but I would probably not be getting her out of the shipyard, personally. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye.